Hello and a very good afternoon from Sheffield in South Yorkshire. You join me as I'm just outside the city's railway station. Today we'll be taking a ride with Northern on the rather picturesque Hope Valley line through to Manchester. But before we set off, let's just see what Sheffield station has to offer. I must say, I really quite like the station's curved arch frontage. Sheffield Station originally opened back in 1870, although the current facade was added 35 years later in 1905. As we enter the station, you'll find some ticket machines just to your right. There are also plenty of departure boards, which I found to be clear and easy to read. Behind the boards, you'll find a travel centre where you can also buy tickets should you wish to do so. Moving further along the concourse, you'll find a few small shops and eateries. It's worth bearing in mind that catering is provided on none of Northern's services, although the journey to Manchester is relatively short, so I wouldn't say that it's essential to pick anything up before setting off.
Ealing, Thetford and Norwich.
To access most of the platforms, you have to head up and across this footbridge. Lifts are also provided for those who need them. I've just popped out the far side of the station to show you the interchange access to Sheffield Supertram. The station is served by the blue and purple lines. The trams run roughly every 10 to 15 minutes and, once on the tram, it'll take you about 5 minutes to get into the city centre. Anyway, time to head back into the station and await the arrival of our train. We'll be departing from platform 7 this afternoon. The service I'll be catching is the 1414 to Manchester Piccadilly. Here comes our train arriving on its inbound service from Manchester. The service along the Hope Valley line will be operated by a pair of Class 150 Sprinters. 137 of these diesel multiple units were built by British Rail between 1984 and 1987, and despite being around 35 years old, still make up a large chunk of Northern's fleet. The Class 150s have a top speed of 75 miles per hour or 121 kilometers an hour. One thing that I will say I do like about Northern's trains is that the location of both wheelchair and bicycle spaces are clearly indicated on the outside of the train. It's a small touch, but I imagine it saves a lot of hassle for those requiring to use these facilities. Seating is in a high density 3+2 configuration, although it looks as though they've basically just whacked a seat in every bit of spare space. No seat reservations are offered on this train, and all seating is standard or second class. Anyway, time for a very quick seat tour. Legroom isn't the best, but this is a commuter train after all. Call me weird, but I actually find these seats to be quite comfortable. Now sure, they're a bit springy, but I find them to be nicely padded and perfectly suited for the relatively short journeys that these trains operate. As is quite common on older trains, the Class 150s are not air conditioned, but rather ventilation is provided in the form of opening the window. As these trains have a tendency to get quite busy, I'm just going to take a quick wander before we set off. 2 bicycle spaces are provided in each unit, and these are free to use on a first come, first served basis. If they're not in use and the train is busy, there are fold out seats you can make use of. The interior of these trains is pretty basic, although I will say that I quite like the moquette that Northern have opted to use on the seats. As you can see, there is plenty of space for storing luggage on overhead racks, although there are no stacks available, so bear that in mind if you're planning on travelling with large or heavy items of luggage. In one of the coaches, you'll find a couple of spaces for wheelchair users. And right next to this, you'll find the unit's only toilet.
Toilet door is locked.
As toilets on commuter trains go, I was really quite impressed. I was surprised to find that everything was impeccably clean, well stocked, and in good working order, so excellent work on Northern's part. Now before we set off, let's just take a quick look at our route for today. Just a relatively short journey today that will see us heading west from Sheffield and via the likes of Hope and New Mills before heading northwest and into Manchester, for a total distance travelled of 42 miles or 67.5 kilometres. Scheduled travel time today is 1 hour and 20 minutes and our top speed will be 75 miles per hour.
This is the Northern service to Manchester Piccadilly. The next stop is Dore.
And we depart Sheffield on time at 14:14.
Sorted. For the protection of everyone, you must wear a face covering that covers your nose and mouth on board trains and at stations.
The first portion of our journey sees us travelling on the Midland Main Line as we make our way through Sheffield's southwestern suburbs. Our first calling point is Dore and Totley, which is just in the outer fringes of Sheffield. Immediately upon departing the station, we branch away from the Midland Main Line and join the eastern end of the Hope Valley Line, where we'll remain for almost all of the trip. The first notable point of interest we encounter is Totley Tunnel. At 3.5 miles or 5.7 kilometres long, it is the longest tunnel on the line and the 4th longest railway tunnel in Great Britain overall. Just after exiting the tunnel, we arrive at our next calling point of Grindleford. Eventually, we call at Bamford. Not to be confused with the Leeds United forward, the village is home to around 1,200 people and apparently hosts an annual carnival. Next up after Bamford is Hope, which is of course the village that the Hope Valley takes its name from. I must say, despite being short and sweet, there was plenty of rather nice scenery en route to Manchester. This was made all the more pleasant due to the fact that the tops of some of the hills were still covered in snow, despite it being well and truly into spring when I filmed this. Edale is our next station stop. The village is notable for being situated at the southern end of the Pennine Way, which is a national walking trail that stretches from here for some 268 miles or 431 kilometres all the way up to Kirk Yetholm in the Scottish borders. After departing Edale, we enter Calburn Tunnel, which is the second longest tunnel on the line at 2.1 miles or 3.4 kilometres long. It is also notable for being the deepest railway tunnel in England. At the deepest point, we are travelling 875 feet or 267 metres below the surface. We soon find ourselves passing the old Tor Vale Mill as we cross the impressive Tor's Gorge below. A moment or two later and we arrive at New Mill Central. About 5 minutes later, we find ourselves in Marple and the beginning of the Greater Manchester region. About a minute after departing Marple, be sure to keep an eye out of the left-hand side of the train to catch a quick glimpse of Marple Aqueduct. It opened in the year 1800 and is the highest canal aqueduct in England, carrying the Peak Forest Canal some 90 feet or 27.4 metres over the River Goyt below. It's not long before the landscape quickly begins to become a lot more urbanised as we close in on central Manchester and Piccadilly Station. Eventually, we arrive at our final cooling point of Reddish North. So, I thought this was really quite a pleasant journey. Despite being a bit old and battered, I think that these sprinters have really stood the test of time, and for commuter trains, I think that they offer a pretty comfortable experience. But of course, the main attraction of this route is the scenery. For such a short journey, there really are quite a lot of impressive views on offer here. So, how much did all this cost me? Well, I paid just £3.35 for my advance single, including railcar discount of a third, booking about a fortnight in advance. Even if you book just a few hours in advance, I've still seen it come in at under £5. Overall, I thought this was a rather scenic and good value railway journey, but what did you make of the experience? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. As we approach the end of our journey, we pass Ardwick train maintenance depot, where some of TransPennine Express's trains are cleaned and maintained. Northern also used the depot to clean some of their trains too. We eventually end up pulling into Manchester Piccadilly about 5 minutes early at just before 3:30. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to help us out by giving it a like. If you're new to the channel, then you're going to want to subscribe and enable notifications as I publish new trip reports every Monday and Friday. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on Monday.